They never open their mouths without subtracting from the sum of human knowledge. U.S. Speaker of the House Thomas Brackett Reed to the Sergeant of Arms regarding two congressional peers. All right. Good morning. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. For tuning in live, I especially thank you for giving me your time so early. So apparently, and I don't know what time this was, but sometime last night while I was not watching the House Oversight Committee, well, apparently they had a bit of a kerfluffle. So putting it lightly. And so the two that got into it, and we're going to play the clip here, are Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia and then House Representative Jasmine Crockett out of Texas. And so I'm reading here from Yahoo News. And let's see, when was this posted? This was posted at 6:05 this morning. So the House Oversight Committee fell into chaos Thursday night after Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene made an offhand remark about Representative Jasmine Crockett. Crockett and Greene got into it almost right away, with Crockett suggesting Greene didn't understand the purpose of the hearing. And then, well, let's watch the video and then let's just see how this played out, because it was quite amusing. All right, let's see what we got here.
Know if any of the Democrats on this committee are employing Judge Merchan's daughter.
Please tell me what that has to do with Merrick Garland.
Is she a porn star?
Oh, Goldman. That's right. She's advising. Okay.
He's advising who? What? Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about. I guess
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order,
Mr.
Chairman.
That's beneath
would
even
you
your
order
order,
order of your committee.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Greene's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your
Move
feelings hurt?
her words down.
Oh,
Girl, baby girl.
oh, really?
Don't even play. with
Baby
me.
girl? I don't think
We are gonna move, and we're gonna take your words down.
I
Thank you very
second that motion.
So who will have to pay? Ms. Greene agrees to strike her words.
I believe she's
Chair recognizes-
apologizing. No. She's
Perry,
apologizing.
okay, hold on. Then after Mr. Perry's gonna be recognized, then Ms.
I'm
Green
not
still has 4 minutes and
apologizing.
21
Well,
seconds.
then
Okay,
you're
reserve
not
the right to
striking your
object.
words.
I am
You're
not
nerve-wracking.
apologizing.
Now let's go. Come on, guys.
That poor
Why
man.
don't you debate me?
Mr. Chairman, the
think it's
minority.
pretty
No,
self-evident.
You're not.
Yeah, you're
out
not.
of order.
You don't have enough
You're out of order.
intelligence.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
Okay, move to strike the.
I'd like to
I
strike
move to
those
strike the
words
lady's
as well.
words.
I would like to-
Lady's
well.
words again.
That's 2 requests to strike. That's 2 requests to strike.
Oh, they cannot take the
There's
words.
another motion to strike her words again. Please
All right.
get
Okay.
your members under
Here's the
control.
correct priority. Ms. Green, do you agree to unanimous consent to strike your words?
I repeat again for the second time. Yes, I'll strike
right.
my words,
That-
but I'm not apologizing.
Without objection. Without
Not
objection.
apologize.
21 seconds.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Who's
All right, here we go.
stopping?
I'm just curious, just to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
A what now?
Chairman, I make a motion to strike those words.
I don't think that's
Hold
a
on.
part
I'm
of the.
trying to find clarification on what quality.
Chairman,
I didn't.
motion to
I had
strike
no
those
idea
words.
what you just said.
We're not gonna do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just
Oh,
You
y'all
just
did it first.
voted to do
Y'all
it.
did it first, so you don't want to talk about
voted to do it.
Order, order.
I'm trying to get
Okay.
clarification.
Look at calm down. calm
No,
down.
because this
I
is
would
what
like to
y'all
get through
do.
proceedings.
So I'm trying
Hey,
to get
Miss
your
Crockett,
opinion.
you're not
Y'all wanna
recognized.
play
Miss
games,
I can't hear
Crockett.
you with your
and you
yelling.
don't want me
Calm
to be-
down. Can
No,
you please calm
don't
down?
tell me to calm down.
Calm down.
Because y'all talk
calm
noise,
down.
and then you
You're
can't
out of
take it.
control.
'Cause if I
Look,
come-
Chairman,
if I
can
come
we
and
send
talk
outside to
shit
take a
about
break
her,
for 5
y'all
minutes?
gonna have a
Mr.
problem.
Chairman, Mr.
Order.
Chairman. Kids, you're both just awful.
All right. So that was kind of the genesis of the quote from this morning. You know, if you look it up, you're going to find that it's actually quite common, historically even, for members of Congress to go at each other. There's like you can look up political insults, you know, history of, and there's like books written about them. And so this is not uncommon. Now it's childish. It really is. And the difference now, of course, is that it gets televised and we can clip it and then we can be like, oh, look at what she said, you know. She talked about her butch body or whatever. And this other one, like, oh, she said something about her eyelashes. And then you've got AOC saying baby girl. Like, when I was in the military, when I went down to boot camp, one of the things that they would say is they would say, "You think you're back on the block?" Right? And I feel like that would be an appropriate question. I mean, not in the House committee, but like just from regular people. Like, I mean, we want some decorum in the House. I mean, that's what we really, really want. But every now and then, it's a little amusing, and I'll have a good laugh at their expense. I mean, because I think that all of them were being juvenile, talking about somebody's eyelashes and insulting somebody's intelligence, and do you even know what we're here for? And I'm not even sure, like, I didn't even bother to look and find out what exactly was their purpose. I didn't even look. I know that at one point at the very beginning you hear someone like, is that a porn star? Like, just the whole thing, the whole clip. And I don't know how much time that clip in. I think you probably noticed that the clip itself kind of like segues. You can see some fades from one scene to the next. So I don't know how much time they actually took up just yelling at each other and insulting. But hey, whatever. Like, from my perspective, that's time that they're probably not doing something, that I wouldn't want them to do anyway, like support some sort of bill or whatever. So fine, whatever, I'll take it. And hey, you know what, we need a little amusement out of Congress every now and then. So I'll take, like, it's fine. It's childish, it's juvenile, flat out will say it. But I had a good laugh, so whatever. All right, so let's get into something a little bit more serious. So Thomas Massie has come out with a new bill, and we're going to take a look at it here real quick. So let's pull it up on the screen. Let's pull his press release up on the screen here, and then we will read his from his press release, and then we'll take a look at this actual bill here that he has. So there we are, and let's see here. So this came out yesterday. Washington, D.C., Representative Thomas Massie from Kentucky announces the introduction of House Resolution 8421, the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act. Representative Massie's legislation abolishes the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Banks. It also repeals the Federal Reserve Act, the 1913 law that created the Federal Reserve System. Now, if you're not familiar with, probably most everybody that's tuning in is going to be familiar with the Federal Reserve, at least, my audience. But if you happen to be somebody that's new and you're like, I don't really know a whole lot about the Federal Reserve, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 113, Libertarians on 25 Issues, Free Trade, and the Federal Reserve. Myself and another gentleman, Tub Rohrbaugh, we talk about the Federal Reserve and the problems that it creates. And it's more than the scope of today's episode, so I can't really go into it. But let's see what he says here, because I think he kind of summarizes very well in this press release. It says, Americans are suffering under crippling inflation, and the Federal Reserve is to blame, said Representative Massie. During COVID, the Federal Reserve created trillions of dollars out of thin air and loaned it to the Treasury Department to enable unprecedented deficit spending. By monetizing the debt, the Federal Reserve devalued the dollar and enabled free money policies that caused the high inflation we see today. Monetizing debt is a closely coordinated effort between the White House, Federal Reserve, Treasury Department, Congress, big banks, and Wall Street, Representative Massie continued. Through this process, retirees see their savings evaporate due to the actions of a central bank pursuing inflationary policies that benefit the wealthy and connected. If we really want to reduce inflation, the most effective policy is to end the Federal Reserve. And then he has a link to it. He's got a few co-sponsors. Original co-sponsors of Massey's legislation includes Andy Biggs from Arizona, Lauren Boebert, Colorado, Josh Breachin, Oklahoma, Tim Burchett, Tennessee, Eric Burleson, Missouri, Kat Kamek, I think, Florida, Michael Cloud, Texas, Eli Crane, Arizona, Jeff Duncan, South Carolina, Matt Gates, Florida, Bob Good, Virginia, Paul Gosar from Arizona, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who we just saw from Georgia, Harriet Hageman from Wyoming, Ralph Norman from South Carolina, Scott Perry from Pennsylvania, Chip Roy, Texas, Keith Self, Texas, Victoria Sparks, Indiana. She's nice. She's one to watch. She has some good, I've seen some good clips from her. And then Tom Tiffany from Wisconsin. So a good handful of people are co-sponsoring this bill. So I think it's a good thing. Now, will it actually go through? That's an entirely different matter. But hey, you know what? I mean, this is the fact that there's this many people signing on to it and co-sponsoring it. Sounds great to me. I mean, I think this is a good first step. And I encourage you to not only watch if you're not familiar with the Fed, to watch my episode and then just look up, videos on YouTube about the Fed. I think you'll be very enlightened about how the Fed operates, what it does, and the potential problems that critics allege. I think there's some very credible critique to have of the Federal Reserve, mainly that they just play with the money supply. That's primary. Like they can do something, and that dollar that's in your hand becomes less valuable to you at the stroke of a pen. So imagine that kind of power, right? And when they're making them decisions, they're making decisions what they think is best for everyone. And well, let's just put it this way. If you're one that believes that lobbying is a problem and that it's really, that Congress is motivated by money, who has the most money, well, then that applies to any of these entities like the Fed, because you can't really make the argument that the wealthy are driving some of our policies in some way, or just large amounts of money are, and then say, well, but this entity over here, the Fed, and I say entity because it's actually a private entity. It's not actually, like, it says Federal Reserve, and so it sounds like, oh, that's a government department. It's not actually. It's not a government department. And so, um, if money is the driver in Congress, or a big driver, maybe it's not entirely, but mostly, then it stands to reason that it's a driver elsewhere. And so then you have to question, well, ain't nobody asking me, my opinion on the Federal Reserve. So who might be pushing for particular policies or think, moves that the Federal Reserve makes when they decide to, as Thomas Massie says up here, where they create money, or they monetize the debt, right? So I encourage you to look it up if you don't know. There's a book, Creature at Jekyll Island. I have not read it. Unfortunately, I just, kind of been busy, but it's on my list of things to read. And from people that have read it, they give a lot of thumbs up as far as enlightenment and as far as how the Federal Reserve was created and so on and so forth. So I encourage you to go look it up, check it out. At a minimum, the Federal Reserve should at least be audited. I've heard a lot of people say, like, look, if we had an audit, a true proper audit of the Fed, a lot of Americans would be angry. Like, oh, okay. Well, I'd like to see that, because I'd like to see what is it that they're doing that would make a lot of Americans angry, even Americans who aren't very familiar with the Federal Reserve. So that would be like, and beside the way, we should always be auditing everything that's related to government. And let's see, so the Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act was first introduced by former Representative Ron Paul out of Texas in 1999, and then hasn't been reintroduced since 2013. In addition to introducing this legislation to end the Fed, Representative Massie has also introduced H.R. 24, the Federal Reserve Transparency Act of 2023, to audit the Federal Reserve. H.R. 24 was originally introduced by former Representative Ron Paul, Texas, 2009. So let's go ahead and take a look at this bill. So kind of do a little ad hoc bill review here. We're just going to kind of go through it really quickly and see what we find. So let's pull that up on the screen. There we are. To a bill to abolish the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve Banks, to repeal the Federal Reserve Act, and for other purposes. I would love to talk to Thomas Massie or anybody out of Congress and just find out like what this "and for other purposes" means. I just don't understand that. It just seems weird. Like I want a bill that's focused on one thing and one thing only, but maybe there's some good reasoning behind it, or maybe sometimes there's good reasoning. I don't know. But one of these days, I'm going to, when this podcast blows up big and we get Thomas Massie on the show, I'm going to ask him, or anybody for that matter. All right. So, first and foremost, this bill is 4 pages long. Not exactly exciting, but again, sometimes it might be necessary. Right. So we're going to skim through it here. In general, effective at the end of the 1-year period beginning on the date of enactment of this act, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and each Federal Reserve Bank are hereby abolished. Repeal the Federal Reserve Act, effective at the end of 1-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. The Federal Reserve Act is hereby repealed. Disposition of affairs. Management during dissolution period. During the 1-year period referred to in subsection A, the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System shall, for the purpose of winding up the affairs of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Banks, manage the employees of the board in each such bank, and provide for the payment of compensation and benefits of any such employee which accrue before the position of such employee is abolished. Manage the assets and liabilities of the board in each such bank until such assets and liabilities are liquidated or assumed by the Secretary of the Treasury in accordance with this subsection. May take other such action or such other action as may be necessary, subject to the approval of the Secretary of the Treasury, to wind up the affairs of the board and Federal Reserve banks. Liquidation of assets. In general, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget shall liquidate all assets of the board and Federal Reserve banks in an orderly manner so as to achieve as expeditious a liquidation as may be practical while maximizing the return to the Treasury. Transfer to Treasury. After satisfying all claims against the board and any Federal Reserve Bank, which are accepted by the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and redeeming the stock of such banks, the net proceeds of the liquidation under subparagraph A shall be transferred to the Secretary of the Treasury and deposited in the general fund of the Treasury. Assumption of liabilities. All outstanding liabilities of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Banks at the time such entities are abolished, including any liability for retirement and other benefits for former officers and employees of the board or any such bank, in accordance with employee retirement and benefit programs of the board and any such bank shall, lost my spot there. Where would I go? There it is. Shall become the liability of the Secretary of the Treasury and shall be paid from amounts deposited in the general fund pursuant to paragraph 2, which are hereby appropriated for such purpose until all such liabilities are satisfied. At the end of the 18-month period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act, the Secretary of the Treasury and the Director of the Office of Management and Budget shall submit a joint report to the Congress containing a detailed description of the actions taken to implement this act and any actions or issues related to such implementation that remain uncompleted or unresolved as the date of this report. That's it. So basically, this is why I do these bill reviews, so that you can read. Now, there was some lingo in there, the way that was written a little bit. Maybe the average person may have a tough time, with some of the way that it's written, the way that, having like under sub paragraph A and stuff. So you may have to bounce around a little bit to kind of remember what you just read. But ultimately, this bill is 4 pages long and it's relatively easy to understand. What he's saying is you have 1 year to dissolve the Fed, and you're going to take care of any of your, all your employees. You're going to make sure that they get paid, and you're going to make sure you're going to deal with any kind of compensation that might be necessary, that you may be obligated to. And then you're going to take all the money, and you're going to liquidate everything. And then any monies that you have are going to be transferred to the Secretary of the Treasury. And then the Secretary of the Treasury will handle everything thereafter. That's it. That's really that's that simple. It's like, pay your bills now, start shutting down, and then transfer everything to the Secretary of the Treasury. Pretty simple. 4 pages, right? Like, it's a good bill. I like this bill. It's one of the very, very few that I actually support, because I generally don't support them. So kudos to you, Representative Massie. Good job. Good job. All right. Okay. So now what else do we got? Let's end Friday on a heartwarming-ish note. So I came across this video yesterday, and let me just say, I'm not a fan of publishing it, but it's already been published. I tracked through the video. It's kind of gone viral. So whatever, it is what it is. I'm not bringing any more attention to it than it already has. And I think it's worth talking about, because that's what we do on this show. We talk about politics, and we talk about culture. So let me play this video clip. It's of a dad, and he's disciplining his daughter. So let's bring this up on the screen, and let's watch it. And then I'm going to tell you my thoughts on this, and then we'll end the show, and we'll all go and have a great weekend.
Now look, I got something to tell you, and don't get upset, because it's for you. I'm taking you out of gymnastics for the rest of this month. Keep running. Keep running. Come on, slide on over here. Come on. Relax. Stop crying. Go, pick it up. Guess what? It's for you. You've been walking around here like you know everything, acting all arrogant. You got this attitude. Your grades been slipping. You need to keep going. Don't stop. You ain't doing it but going to the park. Let's go. Let's go. Gonna get your butt up every morning. You're gonna run. You're gonna work on these pull-ups, and you're gonna get stronger. You're gonna develop your body. You're gonna develop your mind, and you're gonna develop some damn character. And it's time to show me you want this. Right? Huh? She's going in the Marine Corps. No, she's supposed to be a gymnast. But she gotta get her attitude. She gotta get her attitude together. Let's go. It ain't just about because you can flip. That ain't what it's about. You really want to do this, you're gonna have a good attitude. You're gonna have to have awesome character all the way to the bench. There you go. 1. I need 20. Everything gotta develop. Everything. And you as a person. You really want this? All right, well, you're gonna show me at the house. Well, how you act, how you treat your brother and sister, how you respond to me, how clean you are, how responsible you are.
All right. What a great dad. Now, I'm not a big fan of posting those kind of videos online. As a rule of thumb, I think that when you're disciplining your children, that's kind of like a personal, private moment, and shouldn't be published out there. The exceptions that I generally make are when your child has done something, like on social media. Like, let's say that you have a daughter and she's been humiliating, contributing to the humiliation of a peer online, right? And then I would say, okay, well, that would be an appropriate time to humiliate a little back and say, okay, well, if that's the game that you want to play, then let me show you how it feels. So I'm okay. I would be okay with that. This one, I'm not a big fan of publishing it, and because in this particular case, it seems like more of an internal issue. Dad has, based on what he said, it sounds like she just got, maybe she's been hanging around some friends and got a little bit of an attitude. It needs an attitude adjustment. And what I like about this video, what I thought was just phenomenal, he kept a nice, calm, even tone. Like, he wasn't yelling and screaming. Like, he didn't use tons of profanity. I think he said damn character at one point. That was the most profanity, if you will, that he used. So this was great. This is exactly what we should expect out of dads. This is what we want to see, or at least hear about. Maybe, maybe I get together with a bunch of guys and one of the guys is like, yeah, man, my child has been acting up and I just kind of had to set them straight. So here's what I did. And then he would tell me a story similar to this. What I like about it also is the punishment isn't some deranged punishment that has nothing to do with anything. He's like, look, you want to be a gymnast? You need to show me by your attitude and your behavior, how you talk to me, how you talk to your siblings, how do you respect your family members? That is important. You're going to develop some character. And he tells her, he's like, look, it's not just about flipping around. And he's correct. We should always want to make sure that when our children are doing a sport, whether it's gymnast or soccer or basketball, like it's not about can you dunk over everybody else? Can you hit that goal in the net, against every goalie you come up with? Can you do, the most flips or I'm not really familiar with gymnasts, but can you do, something amazing? It's also, how do you carry yourself? How do you act? In fact, that's the most important part. And so I applaud this dad tremendously for the way that he approaches it. And then the punishment, he's like, look, we're going to go for a jog. This wasn't like yeah, I don't know if you saw the video. I don't have it queued up, but there was a video and a man got convicted, I believe. He had like a 6-year-old. And I guess he decided that his 6-year-old was fat. And so he's called like treadmill dad or something like that. And he forced his kid to run on a treadmill. And we're not talking like, okay, he's jogging a little bit and just trying to get some exercise. Like he had the treadmill up on fast. The kid at one point fell because it was like in the community gym or something like that. And so there was a security camera that caught it all on film. And so and it's a very sad story because the child actually died, and I believe it had something to do with his heart. Now I don't know the full details, but I remember he got convicted, and the video I saw was it was horrifying. And number one, I would say that being fat isn't really that's not I mean, it's not a good thing, but it's not like a bad thing. It's not like your child just went out and got fat and just said, you know what, dad, screw you guys. I'm just gonna eat a bunch of Twinkies and then I'll get fat. Like that's not that doesn't require discipline. That does require addressing, but not discipline. And I like the fact that here the dad said, all right, we're gonna do some discipline and we're gonna pull you out of gymnastics for the month, just 1 month. We're gonna pull you out and we're gonna work on your behavior and who you are. And while we're doing that, we're gonna strengthen your body. And he says, like, we're gonna strengthen your body, your mind, and your character. And I'm like, well, those are really great things. That's awesome. And the strength training will make sure that when she comes back in, she's not terribly behind. Now, I don't know if he thought all this through or if he just, whatever. I don't know. But that will be the result of it. The result is that she's going to be out of gymnastics. And so she's not going to be practicing, but she's going to be doing some push-ups and some jogging. And she wasn't, again, there was nothing in there in this video that suggested that he was, running her to the bone. Like he's not like, you know, you're going to run 10 miles today, and then do 100 push-ups or else. He's like, look, give me 20 push-ups for a child. That's probably not too bad, I think. And then, and they were leaning anyway. And then he's like, and she was running at a slight jog, that's it. So I'm like, I'm good with this. And this is the kind of thing I think we should applaud. Maybe not posting it online. I mean, I think that's fair to criticize and say, all right, dad, look, I get it. Maybe we'd rather you just talk about it instead of actually showing the video. Maybe that would have been a little bit more appropriate. And, or maybe blur out her face or something so we can't really see who she is. Something like that, I think would have been a little bit more appropriate. And, but ultimately, I'm not going to give the dad a lot of grief because I really like what I see. And this is, as a dad, this is the kind of thing that I want to see because in my opinion, dads cannot be replaced in society. period. And I will die on that hill. We need dads, and we need dads just like that. And if this dad continues, from what I saw, working with his daughter to ensure that she develops good character and strengthens her body and her mind, just like he said, I think she's going to grow up to be a wonderful person. And he is going to be extremely proud of her someday, wherever, for whatever she accomplishes, whether she goes on to do gymnastics or she becomes a lawyer, a doctor, works at NASA, whatever, wherever she goes. I think the path right now that I'm seeing is going to lead to him being ultimately super proud of her. And then she will be proud of herself, and she will be glad that she had the father she did. So much kudos to him. All right, folks, we are going to end the show today. That was it. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you found the episode informative and mostly inspiring. Yeah, we had some laughs at Congress. Maybe they didn't have a dad that would tell them, hey, we're going to develop some of your character so you don't act like a fool. I don't know. Or maybe they just grew up and said, you know what? I'm an adult now. I can do what I want. Who knows? But we had a good laugh at them. We read a good bill today. That was awesome. I enjoyed it. I encourage you to go back and watch episode 113, where I talk about the Fed more in depth. And then, of course, we're ending the week with, a great display of fatherhood. And so hopefully this has inspired you, if you're a dad, to become, to be like that dad if you're not already. If you're not a dad, to just give a kudos to some dad that and give him some encouragement, or just feel good about the world, even if it's just that much. That's fine. We sometimes need to feel good and say, you know what, there's some good things in the world. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, for an informed discussion on politics and culture. I want you to make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com. You can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, if you're not one of those weird marketing bots, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Last but not least, I want you to remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now,